think we're waiting on a few more people to join, but we'll get started promptly. Jacob, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, you sound loud and clear. Thank you for joining today. Like I said, I think we'll start in a minute or two, let a few more people trickle in. But very excited to talk about telling your data story with Alteryx and Tableau today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Very glad to have everyone. Very excited for the topic today. We'll get started promptly. Thank you. Jacob, I think just to be a good steward of time, we might as well get started. I think many more people are trickling in, but again, want to be a good steward. And we're recording the session, so anyone who misses the beginning, no worries. You'll always be able to go back. Jacob, over to you.
Okay, great. Let me start sharing my screen, and we'll get this rolling. Okay, can you see my screen, Philip?
Looks great.
Okay. Is there a way to get this little guy out of my way? There we go. Okay. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Excited to tell this story today. Alteryx and Tableau are two of my favorite software products, two that I use all the time. So really happy to be able to share this story with you guys today. I am Jacob Olsufka. I am a senior visual analytics consultant at Decisive Data. We are a business analytics consultancy. We do end-to-end analytics work. Two of our major practices are Alteryx and Tableau. We're proud this year to be an Alteryx Premier Partner in the solutions integration, and we're also a gold partner for Tableau. And so I think this is a perfect setting to be able to share how the two of these great software products can be combined together. So I'm not just saying this because, for the sake of doing a webinar for Alteryx, but I literally love using Alteryx and Tableau. In my free time, I work on a lot of projects outside of work. I love doing the business intelligence consulting, but I also like doing creative design and working on other fun projects. So this is a little sneak peek of my Tableau public profile, and I do more fun, creative, design-focused projects. And so every single one of these that you see on the screen right now, the data has been prepped and either been made easier or made possible by using Alteryx before going into Tableau and creating these. So, other than the Iron Viz creations up here, every single thing that's created on this screen is due to this Alteryx and Tableau combination. I know SQL as well. When I have a problem or a challenge dealing with data, almost every time I'll jump into Alteryx, first, because it's just become very familiar. I think it's a little bit easier to use, and it just pairs so well when you're doing an end-to-end analytics project. So, what are some of the benefits of combining Alteryx and Tableau? When you have control of this whole process, so going from a business question to the idea, to creating the data, to then building a visual to present the information. This will allow you to control that whole process and really be able to create anything. So I've learned that through utilizing Alteryx and Tableau, anything is possible. If you have end-to-end access to your data, controlling it all the way through to creating the visuals, you are truly becoming a self-service analyst, and you're going to increase your speed to insights. And every employer desires this type of end-to-end analyst. So if you can combine these two skill sets together, that's going to be a very valuable asset to the company that you're working for. Okay, so we're going to walk through a business scenario today where we demonstrate this end-to-end process. And so let me intro the scenario here. I'm putting myself in the shoes of somebody who works for an analytics team for an online office retailer. We're based out of Silicon Valley. And it's getting towards the end of the year, and our executive team wants a presentation for our review meeting in front of all of the exec team. And what they really are trying to understand is how our performance compared to last year. They want to see if there's any opportunities to minimize costs to our customers. We've learned that price is the #1 motivator for purchasing items, so if we can minimize those costs to our customers, we think we can help drive sales up even higher. So what data do we have? We have transaction data for each order that has been placed. We're going to have information on the products being purchased and the customers doing the purchasing. And this data is stored in different tables in our warehouse. If you guys are familiar with the Tableau Superstore data warehouse, it's a similar data set to that with a little bit added. So the first thing that I want to do is jump out into Alteryx and start to build out my data set so that I can prepare a visual in Tableau. But before we even do that, one of the most important parts of telling your data story is once you understand your business requirements, figuring out what I want to create with that. And so on every project that I work on, before I even go into Tableau, before you start prepping the data, I'll create a sketch. It doesn't have to be, this isn't that great or beautiful of a sketch, but this is going to allow me to have a plan in mind for what data I need and how I want to show it to my stakeholder. I might even align with my stakeholder before I set down the process of gathering the data and spending hours in Tableau building something to make sure that we're on the right track and everyone is going to be aligned. My development in Tableau and Alteryx is going to be more focused and to the point. And so we use whiteboarding and drawing as a really key step in this process. So here's a little example of something I might want to build out in Tableau. It's just an overall health report. We're looking at some summary tiles up top where we're going through sales. These are the 3 metrics that we know is like the pillars of our company's health. So we're looking at overall sales. We're looking at how long does it take to ship to our customers. We want them to get their products as speedily as possible. And we also want to know how much is the shipping cost affecting our customers, because they're the ones that are ending up taking the burden of that. And like we said, if we can somehow reduce these costs to our customers, they might actually buy more from us. So now let's jump into Alteryx and start building this out. So the goal for what I'm going to do here is we're going to bring in that order data, the customer data, and the product data. We're going to join that together. We want to understand, we have addresses for our customers, so we want to see, can we get the lat long so I can map them in Tableau? Hold on, let me step. Before we go into that, we're going to join in that data with the customer and product data. we have an enhanced sales metric, and then add in the lat long of our customers, so for that geospatial analysis. So using an input tool, let me go out and find, we're just using an Excel sheet. Alteryx is really flexible and can connect to almost any data source that you want. If you'll notice here, we have SQL Server, Oracle. They have all of these built-in data connections that are native to Alteryx. So pretty much wherever your data is, you're going to be able to get it out. We can see here that this is our order data. So we have the order date, some information on the product, and how it was shipped, how much we sold it for, all of that good stuff. One of the first things that I do when I bring in data is I throw a select tool afterwards so that we can understand what our field types are, and if I need to rename a field, I can do it right here. I can change the data type. So as I'm looking down, I see that my ship date is being brought in as a string, but I know that Tableau can really flexibly handle dates. So I'm going to want to change that to a date. I also have a flag here if it's returned yes or no. I'm going to change that into a string. Okay, so to enhance my data, I can bring out a formula tool, and this will allow me to use the fields that I have to write formulas with to create new fields. So I'm going to create a field called extended sales, and we know that this metric is going to be sales plus tax. So we're including how much money we're getting, not just from the sale, but from the tax as well. And a best practice that we like to use is I'm going to create a source field and just name this orders. Because when I'm in Tableau and if I have data coming from different sections, I want to have this source field so that I can identify what part of the data stream I'm coming from. Okay, another thing that I want to do is add in that lat long. So in Alteryx, very good at geospatial analysis, so we have a street geocoder tool here. I can hook that up. It's going to smartly recognize that I have fields in my data that relate to an address, and it will auto-populate them. So I'm going to add in the lat and long for all of my customers. I'm going to quickly run this workflow, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so when I'm in my geocoder, it's giving me the option when there's multiple matches. I just want to return the first candidate, so then I don't have to filter through everyone and choose. So Alteryx is a runtime environment, meaning it's going to use your own machine's hardware, suck that data in, and then return the answers. So if you have a workflow that is running slowly, perhaps you can increase the hardware and it will be able to run even faster. So at the end of every tool, we can see the beginning and the end by clicking the input and output, so I can see what's happening at every step of the way. This is really useful for debugging a workflow, so I can see, at the beginning here, and then after this output, I now have these two new rows, extended sales, which of course is sales plus tax. That's a great way to debug. Once I click to the end of this tool, I can now see I have these two extra fields, which is my customers lat and long. Okay, so now I want to join in a couple other tables. I'm going to grab that same input and I'm going to get my customer information. So we have a unique identifier of customer ID, and I can join using this join tool on that customer ID. if you guys are familiar with SQL and haven't used Alteryx, it's going to be a really familiar process for you guys. It's going to be a little bit more visual, but instead of writing, join on customer ID, we can just come in here and use this interface to join on one or multiple fields. I'm going to run that again. You can see there's 3 outputs of this join tool, and right now everything joined fully, so all of my customer IDs were in this table. But if you had customer IDs that were in this table that were not in my table I joined to, then you could use this left results to see what was unjoined from the left. You can use the right to see what was unjoined from the right, and your J in the center is going to be everything that joined in. So the next step, I'm going to join in another table that includes my product information. So I have the product ID as part of my order table here, but I want some more product information, like what is the name, the manufacturer, the company, categories, etc. Really simple again, I can just join on product ID. Okay, so now when I run this, I think I'm ready. I have all my data prepped, but even before I jump into Tableau, I can do some quick analysis here in Alteryx. So I'm going to use a summarize tool, which allows me to, for example, group by state, and I want to see which states are my highest selling states. So I'm going to run that. And we're now going to have an analysis of by state, which ones are my top in sales. If I want to sort it to make it a little bit easier, I can use a sort tool, sort by sum of sales, descending. There's a couple other things that I might want to add here. I want to see which of my states have the highest shipping costs, both in total and as an average. And then in order to understand the volume of products that are being shipped to these different states, I could do something like a count distinct of my order IDs in order to see the volume. So I use these summarize tools in the middle of workflows a lot just to understand what is going on with my data, make sure that things are happening the right way. That's the great thing about Alteryx is it's a workflow. I can branch off this in different directions and run some sub-analysis of my whole workflow to understand what's happening at any point in the way. If you're writing out a big, long SQL code, that becomes a lot more difficult to dive into particular sections of your workflow in order to understand what is happening. So here again, we can see, California has really high shipping costs just because we're selling a bunch of products to them, but on average, actually, this makes sense because our company is based out of California. The shipping costs are lower, but in New York, you can see that shipping cost is really high on average. And so we might want to analyze, is there something that we can do about that? So I'm going to output my data. I have a TDE, which is a Tableau data extract. It's going to work really well with Tableau. I'm going to save it to that. And then we can jump into Tableau and start building an initial dashboard that we want to present to our exec team to help them understand what's going on with the company. As your workflow is running, you can see down here in the Results tab, this is really useful to understand if there are any errors that are happening. if things are maybe being converted from a string to a number or number to a string, you're going to have that all logged down here for you. What is happening, how long it takes. So this is a really useful way to understand your workflow. Okay, so let me jump into Tableau. I have a dashboard that I started building for this, but we're going to build out the rest of it here. So you can see, like my whiteboard, we have a few summary tiles at the top for sales, days to ship. Over here, I want a summary tile on shipping costs. So let me jump in, and I can start building this. Okay, so I have my shipping costs. I'm going to make this big and bold. When you're thinking about building out dashboards, the reason why we have those summary tiles at the top, we have big numbers, that's what drives the attention. So the first place that people often look when they go into a visual is at the top, and they're going to be drawn to these big numbers. And so it's important that we lay out our information in a way that, all right, let me change the color of this. All right, we'll leave it like that for now. It's important to think about, when you're thinking about the flow of a dashboard, what's my most important information? Let's have that at the top. Let's have that at the left, because we read left to right, top to bottom. And so we can use some of those conventions when we're thinking about how to best lay out a story. Okay, so I want to show my comparison to last year of my shipping costs. So I'm going to drag out my 2016 shipping costs and my 2017. I'm going to turn that first one into an area chart. And then my second one can remain a line chart. Dual axis those. Get rid of that color that was added in. And make sure that my axes are synchronized so that we have an accurate representation of the comparison between this year and last year. Okay, so you can start to see we've got this summary tile built out. The next part on this, I want to see which of my regions have the highest shipping costs. And I'm going to sort it top to bottom. So we can see the East Coast is number one by quite a ways. And this makes sense because we're shipping all the way from California. And so in order to get our products to the East Coast, that's going to take a while. The next thing that I want to do is just have a really nice comparison of 2016 to 2017, how we related. So I have this calculated field that looks at that, and we're saying 2017 sales minus 2016 sales divided by 2016 sales. That's going to give me my percent change from 2017 to 2016. So I'm going to throw that onto here, format that as a percentage. Now, you can actually add in Unicode symbols in Tableau. So here I have these up arrow and down arrow. I really like those for metrics when you're seeing if they're improving or decreasing. And so just adding them in as a text field, I can say if my sales difference is greater than 0, I want that to be an up arrow, otherwise have it be a down arrow. And now when I add that on, it's going to give me that up arrow. Okay, so I can also color by that. So I might want it to be green when we're going up, red when we're going down. And actually, I was using the wrong fields here. I should be using shipping cost. Let me change those real fast. Because shipping costs, if they are going up, that's actually bad for us. All right, let me format this real fast. These built-in Tableau fonts, I think, work really good. They're going to be compatible on any browser, any computer. Sometimes if you guys are using fancy fonts, they might not show up exactly how you want, depending on the browser that you're looking at them in. So I've been using these Tableau fonts more and more. And then Tableau Medium, we'll just say from last year. Okay, so now we've got our summary title up here built out. And it's looking pretty good. We have our 3 key metrics of overall sales, days to ship, and shipping costs built out. I know that I want a map down here. So I'm going to use state. I have my state. If I just drag that out onto the field, I'm now going to get a map with all the states. It looks like Wyoming had nobody that ordered, so there's a little blank there. So I can start looking at things like, okay, which states have the most sales? California stands out, New York, Washington, Texas. Those are some of my key areas where people are buying from. What if I want to look at the volume? So again, when we look at order IDs, we can go a count distinct of order IDs. So you can see that shifted a little bit. Illinois has a higher volume, but maybe not as many sales. If I go back, and you can see the shift between those. But what I really want to focus on is my shipping costs. So if I look at the sum of my shipping costs, I can see again, New York, because it's so far away, is bearing a big burden there. But this doesn't really, that's outweighing everything just because there's more orders there. So what I really want to do is look at the average shipping cost. And now let me change, I'm going to use that same palette. We can start to see that as we go across the states farther away from California, that average shipping cost is really, really increasing. Okay, up here I want to understand my regions and their average shipping costs. So I'm going to drag region up. I want to see what is my average shipping cost. But then also, so there's my average shipping cost. And then I want to see the volume that these different areas account for. So I'm going to throw a count distinct of order ID, and then I can use a quick table calc to do the percent of total. So now I can see the percentage that each of these accounts for. With a little bit of formatting here, and emphasize the shipping cost a little bit more. And now we can start to see that coming together. Down here, I just want to see what are my top states as far as my shipping cost. So we can drag state up. We can look at my average shipping cost again. We can sort it. Let me format this. So there you can see these East Coast states are really, customers are paying a lot for shipping out there. If I want to quickly be able to see what region they're in, I can add region to that. Let me add it to detail as well. So I have some built-in interactivity as well on here. If we click on the East Coast, it will highlight. Let me go back onto here and just add that to detail so that it highlights as well. Utilizing interactivity like this, I can see, okay, here's my East Coast states. Almost all of the East Coast states are at the top of my list here for average shipping cost, whereas almost all my West Coast states are at the bottom. So I think that the takeaway here is that what if we had some way to serve our customers out on the East Coast, which is a growing market for us, a little bit better than shipping all the way from California. We have some flexibility up here to look at different segments and categories, and this whole dashboard is going to be interactive and allow our execs to dive into every little piece of the business here. So I think this is a pretty good example to show our executive team. So let's jump back in. So now we have to present to them. And we've got our exec team staring at us saying, okay, what's going on with our company? We might first show them this dashboard, walk them through a little bit of what we just talked about. And then we've come up with some recommendations here. So we can understand that the sales are up, but shipping looks like it's becoming an issue. So our East Coast customers, they're incurring large shipping costs. Sales might even go higher in New York and on the East Coast if we can solve this problem, because we see that in California, where the shipping costs are low, there's also a big boom in sales. So we're going to recommend that we can expand a distribution center. If we have a more centrally located center that we can ship from, this will allow us to serve those customers more cost effectively. So we went and talked to our real estate team. They gave us 4 options. They're all in our price range. They're going to cost us about the same, so we don't have to worry about which one's going to cost more. We can just assume that they're all going to cost the same. And now we want to analyze these options in order to recommend which center is going to be the best one for us and give us the most opportunity to save cost. And so we're going to be taking into account where my customers are, how much they're spending, looking at our historical data in order to run some analysis on where might be the best location. We also have talked to our shipping partner, and we have some logic that we want to build into this workflow. We know that our shipping is always going to cost a minimum of $3. Every 400 miles is going to cost $3, and then the remainder off of that is 2 cents a mile. We have different ship modes, so if you are getting your products same day, that's going to cost you twice as much as standard class. And we also have a flat rate. So we're going to ship our items in bulk to the distribution center, which is going to cost us, but it's going to cost us much less since we're shipping in bulk. And so we need to take that into account. Atlanta's the farthest away, so that'll cost a little bit more than our Arlington location near Dallas. That'll cost us a little less. Okay, so let's jump back into Alteryx and start to build this out. So here's what we're doing. We want to see, using the lat long and that spatial analysis of our customers and distribution centers, we want to be able to find the distance between them and then analyze with all of this business logic that we build in, which ones actually are going to give us the most cost-efficient option. So I'm going to add back in my order table. Now I know that my West Coast customers are likely still going to be served by the corporate headquarters in California. We're not going to get benefit out of the distribution center shipping to the West Coast. So I'm going to filter out these West Coast customers for this analysis with a simple filter tool. And now I want to add in that customer address so that I can get a spatial object out of that. So a spatial object is how Alteryx handles geolocation. So I'm going to output a spatial object, a lat and a long. I'm going to rename some of those so that they're specific to what I'm looking at. So I know this is my customer object. And then I'll name this customer lat and customer longitude. Okay, same thing for my distribution center. So I have a list here from the real estate team of my distribution centers. We have a location in Atlanta, a location in Chicago, a location in Nashville, and then in Dallas. And so I want to find out, where are these locations? Same thing, I'm going to return the object, the lat, and the long. And then I have some similar titles of these headers, but I don't want them to be mistaken for my customer information or my order information. So here's a good trick. Using this dynamic rename tool, I can dynamically name all of the headers here with a prefix. So I'm just going to add a dist so that I know that they are coming from the distribution center. If I add a browse tool behind each of these, a little keyboard shortcut, Shift-Control-B adds them, or you can drag it in. Now, since I have this spatial object as part of my data, when I use the browse tool, I'm going to be able to visualize here here's all my customers. Wait for this map to render. And then here's all of my distribution centers. So we can see the Chicago, the Nashville. So if you guys have data where you have addresses and you need to run some geospatial analysis, Alteryx is going to be a great way to just add that in with one simple tool. Okay, let me change the name here like I did with the other one to distribution center, or distribution object rather. Distribution longitude. So now what I want to do is I want to compare every single order that I have with every option for distribution center. I'm going to do that by adding in an append fields tool. So this is now going to take every row of this top workflow and it's going to add each distribution center to that row so that I can analyze every single row against every single option for my distribution center. I have an extra table. We need to join in my shipping multiply table, so let me do that next. This is just a really simple table that has that logic of standard class is 1, first class is 2. So it's my ship mode multiplier table. And now let me join that in. Based on ship mode. Okay, so I'm going to run this real fast just to make sure everything's working. You'll notice that I could have filtered out West, you know, after this tool. Like, the order of these tools doesn't necessarily matter, but when I'm thinking about running an analysis in Alteryx, every step of the way, the more data that you have, the longer it's going to take. So if you know that you're trimming out your data, do that as soon as possible. This is going to run a lot faster because I filtered out my region of West before I ran the addresses for all of them. So keep that in mind. Get rid of extra columns that you might not need. Get rid of rows that you might not need as soon as possible. So the next tool, up in the spatial tab here, we have all these different spatial tools. And so I'm going to drag out the distance one. This one is simply going to tell me the distance between my customer object, so each customer, and each distribution center. And it's going to return that output in miles. Okay, let me go grab the business logic for my shipping. I don't want to, in a respect of time, here is the business logic for the shipping costs. And so we can see here we're going to create a mileage group. It's going to tell us how many 400-mile increments have we gone. So it's the floor of the distance of miles divided by 400. We're going to take that remainder. This mod tool is simply, or function is simply the remainder of dividing our miles by 400. So now we're going to take those, and using our logic, we knew that every 400-mile increment costs $3, and every remainder mile costs 2 cents. Okay, we know that there's a minimum of $3, so if it's less than 3, we want to set it to 3. Otherwise, go to new shipping cost. And within this tool, I could have dragged out 4 or 5 different formula tools, but that would be cumbersome. So that's why it's really nice in the formula tool that you can sync these different formulas up. So this is going to happen in order. It's going to calculate the mileage group first, then the remainder miles, then this version of new shipping cost, and then this version of new shipping cost. Where it references new shipping cost here, it's going to reference what I just did in this formula. So let me add in another one. I'm going to augment new shipping cost one more time, and I'm going to say I want to take my multiplier, multiply it by my new shipping cost, and then I want to add in that flat rate. And the IntelliSense within these is really nice, so I can just start to type flat, and it'll come up with my flat shipping cost. That's the cost it takes to ship each product in bulk. And again, we have this source field, so that now, if I only want to, in Tableau, look at my distribution center analysis, I have this source field that I can filter to. If I want to go back and look at my order information, I have that old source field called orders that I can filter to. So that's going to be really important, especially since we're duplicating some of these rows in order to get the analysis for each distribution center. Okay, and the final thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to rename my shipping cost to previous shipping cost. Okay, so again, maybe before we go into Tableau, we pull out this summary tool and we just want to see what is the data telling us, so we can look at our distribution name, we can group by that, and I want to see which one is going to give me the smallest new shipping cost. Based off of our historical data, if we're going to assume that we're going to see similar patterns, this is what the shipping cost would have been if these distribution centers existed for those customers. Okay, so we can see that Nashville and Chicago are virtually tied. Our Atlanta location a little bit more, and then Arlington is going to be the highest of these 4 options. So that's interesting. So Chicago and Nashville seem like, from a cost-saving standpoint, maybe our best options. Let me grab all of this. If I highlight everything and then add it to a new container, I can move around all these tools at once. And then now I can copy this and bring it back into my first step. And what I want to do is take this data and, using a union tool, because I want the same customer and product information joined in with all my distribution center analysis. But since we use that source field, I'm now going to be able to, in Tableau, switch between looking at the orders or looking between this distribution center. So I'm going to union it in, add in all the customer and product information, and now let me rerun this workflow. I'm going to have to close Tableau first so that it can overwrite that PE. And now let me rerun it. So this is a very common thing that happens in data analysis is you present a dashboard to somebody, you provide them with insights, a secondary question is created from that insight, and then you have to go back and augment or change your analysis in order to answer that secondary question. Okay, so now we're ready to jump back into Tableau using our new data source and just try to understand what's going on with our distribution centers. So if I open up a new sheet and I look at my distribution name, the reason why we have a null here is because of that source. When you have the order source, it doesn't have a distribution name. So let me just look at distribution center. And now, again, we can look at our new shipping cost to see who is the least. Maybe add a label on. So Nashville and Chicago virtually tied. One thing that we can look at, though, is we know that we have a truck fleet that is going to be driving all of these miles. So what if we look at the distance of miles that they would have to drive? We can actually see that Nashville is a little bit better than Chicago in this case. And so from a wear and tear, maintenance, gas mileage standpoint, perhaps Nashville might be the better option. Okay, let's jump back in. We're ready for our recommendation. So again, these are the 4 options that were given to us. First question we wanted to answer was, which center has the best dollar saving opportunity? Chicago, Nashville, virtually tied. I think that what this is showing, however, is that the benefits of a distribution center, even all 4 locations, are going to be saving us a bunch of money if we implement them. Which location is best for a truck fleet? Just what we looked at. We want to see the number of miles that these trucks are going to have to drive from each location, and Nashville is the leader in that. So if we start to think back and use our analysis from before, overall sales, we saw that this spiked in the winter months. So there's this increase as the year goes on. We know that Chicago's in an area of the country that might have to deal with winter storms and snow, and so that might not be the best option if we're having a distribution center coming out of there in winter. So to sum all this up, we might present this to our execs as here's the 3 ways we thought about this, and here's our recommendation. We recommend that the distribution center be located in Nashville, and we can say that our customers outside the West Coast can save up to 50% on shipping costs. So in the keeping time in mind here, this was a pretty simple analysis. But if this is going to be a huge investment for a company, what they might want to do is use this historical data and get a more accurate prediction of where the customer base will be in the future. So use your historical data to predict, using advanced analytics, a better model of which markets are increasing or decreasing. And Alteryx has a full suite of advanced analytics tools that would be great for that analysis as well. So that is the story. I hope that you guys enjoyed seeing that whole process go through. Again, going from business requirements to building out the data workflow to creating a visual that you present, having a secondary question created from that, going back into the data, remodeling it so that you can answer that new question. This is a scenario that I love doing at work. The projects that I've had where I've had full control end-to-end, utilizing Alteryx and Tableau, have been my favorite. I have our contact information here. I want to give a big shout out to our Alteryx practice lead, Michael Stead. He's done a great job in building up the practice and becoming the partner that we are now. But he helped me a lot preparing this data and presentation. And if you have any questions about the professional services that we provide, or just want to talk to us about any of your data problems or needs, Zach would be a great contact to have there. And feel free to reach out to me as well. I know we have a few minutes here at the end. I can stick around for a little while and answer any questions that you guys have. But if not, thank you again for joining.
And just so everyone knows, I've gotten a few questions about the recording. We will have this recorded, and I'll make sure that, feel free to reach out to any of us if you don't receive it, but you should have access to it afterwards. Hey, Jacob, I've got also a question for you. I think you mentioned that you have a public Tableau gallery. How do folks get access, or how do they view that?
So if you go to, let me pull up the internet here. If you just search my name and Tableau Public, it should show up. So Tableau Public has a great gallery, not of just me, of course. You guys can go and see. There's something called the Viz of the Day, where they pick a visual every single day that tells a really cool story, does great things within Tableau. There's also this featured gallery. My personal profile, I have my tag as Data Wizard. That was something I created early on. But anyways, yeah, you can just search my name and it'll be out on Tableau. Decisive Data has a great profile as well if you want to get more. Let me see, Tableau Public, Decisive Data. We have some great examples of more of your business style dashboards on their public profile. So it's a great resource for getting inspiration, and most of the visuals that are out there on public can actually be downloaded, and you can see how people made things and try to reverse engineer some of that. So.
Great. And I've got another question here in the chat. How do people get started on Alteryx? What's the best way to get started?
Yeah, it's a good question. Alteryx is, I would say, a pretty easy tool to pick up and learn once you just start playing around in it. So I think you'll find, especially if you understand the SQL concepts, you're going to love this tool. It has great sample workflows, tutorials, just right in that help section. You know, they have a whole suite of how you do viewing data, filtering data, blending, and then it has even the individual tools, all of these great examples here in Alteryx. Some of the tools, even when you click on them, they have an example next to them, so you can see examples of how you union data, how you join data. So honestly, within the tool itself, there's a lot of great resources, and then there's also online help as well. But you know, for me, what I did was I just found data that I loved working with. You know, a lot of my stuff is dealing with baseball, and so I would just take baseball data that I had, and I wanted to create you know, a visual in Tableau, and I needed to prep the data for it. So I just started playing around, and I think that's a great way to learn, is just you know, get into the tool and try some things out.
Great. And if folks want to leverage you all as a resource moving forward, what does that look like?
Yeah. So again, we have our contact information here. We do trainings. We do you know, implementations of Alteryx workflows for businesses. We can help pretty much any step of the data process that we just showed. Decisive Data has resources that are experts in that, and so I would just say, you know, reach out. We have a website, decisivedata.net, where you can look at examples of our work and get some more information as well.
All right, great. And everyone, just this last comment, after you close out the WebEx, you'll be sent to the Tableau Starter Kit, where you can download your first trial of Alteryx, as well as the Starter Kit to get you connected into Tableau. So feel free to leverage that. And you have our contact information. Is there anything else, any questions other than that? In the chat, feel free to mention them now. Otherwise, I think we're set to go. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, great week, and look forward to talking to you soon. Bye-bye.